Valley Vet Supply is devoted to providing information and professional quality products at reasonable prices.
Valley Vet Supply.
This segment brought to you by Kansas Wheat. Learn more at rediscoverwheat.org.
Now, I'm sure a lot of producers are wondering what the recent low temperatures are doing to the wheat.
That's definitely a huge concern with wheat growers throughout the state. And we have had actually 3 different cold spells this far. One was in late March. The crop was probably small enough that one might not have hurt us. We had the second one in the early part of April. And then we had a third one that was just now on Good Friday, just before Easter. And that was likely one of the most dangerous ones. So what are the 3 things that we need to consider when it comes to freeze damage on wheat? Number 1, how cold did it get, right? That's the one factor that we need to consider. The second factor is for how long were temperatures at damaging thresholds or below damaging threshold to the crop. And the third one is how far along is the crop. The stage of development of the wheat crop is actually very important because different phases of the development of the crop have different thresholds to cold temperature. So for example, a crop that is fillering, it might handle temperatures down to 12 degrees quite well. A crop that is jointing, that has already the first node appearing, well, if we get to the low 20s, if you get below 24, 25, that can already cause some damage. And as the crop progresses towards antithesis, so the second node, perhaps the third node, and boot stage, and so on, it gets more and more sensitive, so that 32 degrees can cause damage when the crop is flowering. So with these 3 different freezes that we had, probably the region that would be more exposed to cold damage would have been parts of central Kansas in a crop that was planted early. Remember that we have 3 different stages of the crop. So those fields that were planted early, they were bigger and more developed. So they were more sensitive to cold temperatures as well. In those fields, we might actually see some level of damage. And the fields that were behind in development as compared to those, at least, they might have dodged that bullet, mostly because they're not as sensitive to cold temperatures, right? So probably the biggest concern would be central Kansas, parts of south central Kansas. So as we get to, for example, Stafford County or lower Pratt County or something along those lines, that transition region where the crop was already advanced enough, could suffer some cold temperatures, some damage from the cold temperatures, because below that, though the crop might have been more advanced, temperatures didn't get as cold as we get, for example, to Sumner County. The crop would probably have been further along than what we had in Pratt or Stafford County, but then temperatures were not as cold. So this time of the year is very challenging. I think we will see some damage to the wheat crop this year, and that damage can have different facets here, right? So the primary heads, which are the more developed, they're in those more advanced fields, there's a very high chance that they're probably going to perish and they're not going to be there anymore. If we have weather conditions now that are conducive for bouncing back of the crops, for a regrowth of the crop, like moisture and cool temperatures, that can still be pretty helpful, and we might end up with a very decent crop, even in those fields that got damaged by the cold. Now, if it turns out to continue to dry out and temperatures warm up, for example, then those fields are likely going to have very low yield levels, and producers are probably going to look into terminating some of those fields. So definitely a widespread concern, south central Kansas, central Kansas as well, perhaps those fields in southwest Kansas that emerged early as well. The ones that didn't emerge until the spring, they're probably more protected because they are behind development. So definitely some concerns out there. Definitely some producers are likely losing some sleep now, but I'd like to remember them. There's nothing they can do right away. The best thing to do right now is to wait a few days after that cold spell, right? Give it a week, give it some warm temperatures, and then go out and check for any symptoms. right? And what they should really be checking for would include new leaves coming out from the whorl. So if those new leaves are nice and green, there's a pretty good indication that that filler is alive. If those leaves are yellow, there's a high chance that that filler is probably gone. Also, looking for those main stems, picking them out, splitting them lengthwise, and looking for that developing head. If the developing head is nice and green and turgid, crispy, then it's a good sign. If that developing head is yellow and mushy, and you can really tell that it's gone, then probably that filler is not going to produce any grains.
When we come back, learn how K-State Extension is keeping you informed during COVID-19.